Maryland has another must-win against Minnesota.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing some work on InsideBlackandGold.net. Make sure you guys go over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Terps are in another must-win game against Minnesota. I don't want this game to be taken lightly. I don't want this game to think just because we just came off this huge win against USC, the feelings are high for sure for the Maryland football team. And a lot of people feel good about what we're doing and feel good about the potential of the team and where we're going after having a tough start and losing some games that we felt like we should have won. Northwestern, Michigan State, Indiana, you could argue they're a top 13 team in the country. But after beating USC, I think a lot of people are kind of taking the back seat this weekend and are feeling like, oh, this is a game we should win, which I would completely agree. But this isn't just a game we should win. This is a game that Maryland has to win. This is a must-win game. I know we beat USC, but we're still not where we want to be. This is a football team that wants to be a 7-8 win team consistently or more than that. Maybe they can get to 9 wins one year or 10 wins. But right now, we're a team that wants to be a 7-8 win type of football team. And right now, when I look at our record, we're 4-3 with only 4 games left on our schedule, and 2 of them are against Penn State and Oregon, against 2 top 3 teams in the country. When we take away after the Minnesota game, there's only 4 games left. There's 5 games left in general, but there's only 4 games left after this Minnesota game. So there's not that many opportunities to get wins. And I think that beating Minnesota is absolutely a must for the Terps. And I think we're in another spot where we gotta win this game against Minnesota. First of all, we're only 1-3 in Big Ten play. We're not like 500 in Big Ten play. We're not over 500. We're not like 3-1 in Big Ten. We're 1-3 in Big Ten play. And I think how a lot of people are going to evaluate Mike Locksley and the Maryland football program is how you do in Big Ten play. It's not about beating Villanova. It's not about beating UConn. It's about beating a team like Minnesota on the road, or beating USC at home like what we just did, or beating Northwestern at home, which we got absolutely crushed to. People are going to judge you by your Big Ten record. People don't really care that you beat UConn and some of these other teams that you beat early on the season. Even Virginia, like, people definitely care about us beating Virginia, but where the meat and the bones are and where we really want to win games is in Big Ten play. And I'm going to say it, this is one of the few opportunities we have. I think there's 3 more this year where we have a clear shot to win the game. And I think there's a clear pathway to us winning the game. I just don't believe in Oregon and Penn State that there's a clear pathway for us to beat those 2 types of teams. But I think against Minnesota, I think we have a clear pathway to win this game. And then I think Rutgers, we have a way to beat them. And I think Iowa, who has been good, definitely a good team this year, but I think there is a way for us to beat Iowa. So I think in terms of us just getting back to being a solid Big Ten team and getting that Big Ten record where everyone's going to evaluate you, I think that is a big reason why Minnesota is a must-win game, because we don't have ample opportunities. We don't have unlimited opportunities for us to beat a team like a Big Ten team that we're clearly have a chance to beat, and a team that I think we're probably better than. I think that it's important for us to figure out how to win a game like that. And then as well as when I look at it, I think the biggest reason it's a must-win game, which I'm going to keep preaching on until we get there, it's the bowl opportunity. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about. We got to get to 6 wins to get to a bowl game. We got to get to 6. We're at 4 now, and you look at it, and I keep telling you guys, Penn State, I just don't see us winning that game on the road in Happy Valley. Could we make it close? Could we find a way to make it competitive and do some different things? Yeah, we could. But that's a really tough environment to play in. That's a really tough environment to win in. And then Oregon, November 9th, Eugene, they're on fire right now, and they look like the best team in the country. 2 teams I just don't see us beating. And so to get to a bowl game, we need 2 more wins. And I think it's very, very possible for Mike Locksley. But you look at Minnesota, you look at Rutgers, and you look at Rutgers and Iowa are both better than Minnesota. And I think Minnesota is the easiest team we play left. And if we drop this, we'll have to beat Rutgers and Iowa to make it to a bowl game, which honestly would not be in our favor, would not be something that is likely to happen. But I think Minnesota, if you beat Minnesota, I think you have a really good chance at getting to a bowl game. And I think you set yourself up for an opportunity to just win one of your last 4 games. And so I think that in terms of getting to a bowl game, which clearly is the goal of this program, if we don't want to go backwards, we're already seeming to go backwards a little bit in our win total. I think the most wins we can probably get to is 7. 7 is not going to be easy, but I think 6 is more likely. But I think that this is a team that we got to beat Minnesota because we got to figure out a way to get a bowl game. We got to find a way to keep progressing as a program. And if we're a program that has gone to 4 straight bowl games after this year, I think that's when you really start picking up some momentum. And I think that's when people start looking at you and saying, this Terps program is a really solid program. They're doing some really good things, and they're putting themselves in some really good positions to get themselves opportunities to win games and to get themselves into opportunities to be a decent team in the Big Ten. And I think that's kind of what we are. Obviously, you want to be a top 10, top 15 team, but that's just not who we are. I think we're a team that wants to make a bowl game right now, and we'll see. The 2025 class is really special. Can he match that with the 2026 class? But I think it's a must win because if you lose to Minnesota, you feel like you're going backwards in so many different ways. One, it really hurts in terms of the season, the overall season outlook in terms of we put ourselves in this hole because we didn't want to beat Northwestern. We didn't want to beat Michigan State. I'll tell you, this Terps team, when I really look back at it, easily could have been like an 8-9 win team, which is probably a topic for another day. But now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, we should have beaten Michigan State. That's another win. That would have gave us 5 wins. Beaten Northwestern. I know we got crushed, but that's a team we're better than. That's 6 wins. You had a chance to beat Minnesota, 7 wins, and then Iowa or Rutgers, that's 8 or 9. Like, you had a real opportunity to get to 8, 9 type of wins, but we dug ourselves in this hole where I think, in my opinion, it's a must win because our program has gone forward every single year under Mike Locksley, and this year we're due to go backwards a little bit in win total, which is going to happen eventually. It's just what you're going to have a down year eventually. But I think if you're going down and you still have the opportunity to make a bowl game and still move your program forward and you beat USC this year, it could still look at a really good year and still a year that got our program going in the right direction. But if you lose to Minnesota and you drop it 1 against Iowa, Rutgers, maybe you win one of those, but still it doesn't look awesome, and you drop your the other 2 to Penn State and Oregon, then you're looking at the year and you're saying, we didn't make a bowl game. We lost to a bunch of teams we absolutely could have beaten, but we beat USC. And it's like it takes away a lot of the value from beating Lincoln Riley and USC. So I do think that this is a must win. specifically for the bowl thing. I think for the bowl game, if you want to make a bowl game, this is a must win. And we're going to start saying that with these games that aren't Oregon and Penn State. You're going to start hearing me say that. This is a must win game. This is a must win game because it is. If we want to continue to go forward, if we want to continue to get into bowl games, if we want to continue to have the opportunity to do those types of things, and have the chance to play somebody at the end of the year, then this is a must-win game against Minnesota. It's the easiest game left. It's a game that we have the best opportunity to win, and I think that we have a good chance at winning it. And I'll tell you guys tomorrow my predictions. I do those on Friday usually, so make sure you guys tune in tomorrow's episode for that. But I do think we have a good chance at winning that game tomorrow against or on Saturday against Minnesota. Maryland's passing attack will be the key against Minnesota and just for the rest of the year. I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats and view live play-by-plays and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Guys, there's so many different things you can bet on FanDuel right now. If you want to bet on the NBA is back, and we have a ton of games. It feels like every single night for the NBA. You can bet on that on FanDuel. Also, NFL season is in full swing. We have a full NFL slate on this Sunday. If you guys want to be able to bet on that. Of course, college football, Maryland, Minnesota, the game this weekend, you can bet on that as well. There's so many different things you can do on FanDuel, so make sure you guys head over to FanDuel. Of course, the MLB World Series is coming up, so make sure you guys go over to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Maryland's passing attack, I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore. I'm not going to say Maryland's got to be able to run the ball. We got to get Billy Edwards in the run game going. Maryland's passing attack is what's going to win us games this year. And I didn't think it was going to be like this going into the year, but I think Billy Edwards has done enough as a passer this year to prove to us that the passing attack for Maryland football is really good. When we look at it in terms of the Big Ten, when we look at it in terms of the overall landscape of things, I really think that Maryland's passing game is top notch for the Terps. And I think it's a strength of our football team. I think it's the strongest part. I think it starts with the receivers. I think the receivers are the strongest part of our football team. But Billy Edwards, I'm telling you, a lot of people are viewing him as a really good quarterback. And I saw a little Instagram rankings, which I look at. I think they're interesting to see what the rest of the country kind of puts our guys. And I saw Billy Edwards was ranked like the 15th ranked quarterback. I forget what Instagram it was, had him ranked. It was like a pretty popular one. And it's interesting to see that he is getting some national recognition. I think he deserves it. But I think how we win games is the passing attack. I think it's pretty obvious. I think there's no other way to sugarcoat it, and I think it's the strength of our team. Like when you look back at the numbers, Billy had to throw for 373, 2 touchdowns to beat USC at home, which makes sense. When you play a team like USC, you're going to have to pass for a lot of yardage. Even against Virginia, had to throw 43 times, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that's like an average. That's like a lower than average game than him. And those are 2 wins that didn't come from us, from a Villanova or UConn, because I feel like I'm not going to talk about those games too much. Those don't really have much of an impact to me. And then when you look at where he is in terms of the Big Ten, he's top of the Big Ten in passing yards. He's in front of Dylan Gabriel. He's in front of Miller Moss. He's in front of Curtis Rourke. Now, is that inflated a little bit? Yes, I'll be the first one to tell you that, because he is also he has more attempts than just about everyone besides Miller Moss, which I actually didn't realize. Miller Moss at this point has more attempts than Billy Edwards. I always thought Maryland was going to be the one with the most attempts, but he has almost 200 more yards than Miller Moss, and Miller Moss has 6 more attempts. So it tells you that he's being efficient with the passing game definitely being efficient, and he's doing some big things in terms of passing the football. And I think that it's the strength of our team, and it's how we beat Minnesota. I think that if we don't pass the ball for a lot of yardage and Billy Edwards isn't effective, I don't have trust anywhere else. I don't have enough trust anywhere else in my football team that I think that we're going to win the game. But Billy Edwards, he's putting together a really good year. He averaged 301 yards a game. So this is a guy who is throwing the ball a ton, and it's the key for us to win games. And it's not only Billy Edwards. Obviously, Billy Edwards is a really important part of it. But if you look at it, Ty Felton's leading the Big Ten in receiving yards, and it's not even close. He has 803 reception yards, 6 touchdowns. The next closest is Elijah Surratt at Indiana, who has 578 yards. So it's really not close. And then Caden Prather is number 10 in the conference with 461. So we have 2 guys in the top 10. We have the number 1 receiver in the Big Ten. And so when you look at it, you say Maryland's passing game is what is winning us games right now. It's how we win games. It's not our running game. Our run game is pretty awful, to be honest. Like, a lot of the time you look at the run game and I say we can't run the ball. Is it our offensive line fault? Is it our running back's fault? I don't know. But when I look at the Big Ten rushers, Roman Hemby's 18th in the Big Ten. Like, that's not good enough. 18th in the Big Ten, like that to me, that's not good enough for us in terms of rushing. And then Nolan Ray's 24th. So we have 2 guys that out of all the teams in the Big Ten now, we have Roman Hemby at 18th and Nolan Ray as the 24th best rusher. We can't run the ball. The passing attack is where we're making our money right now. And I'm looking at this game against Minnesota, and I think that the way we're going to win the game is throwing the football. For the rest of the year, for this game against Minnesota, it's how we're going to win the game, is throwing the football a lot and throwing it for a lot of yardage. I just watched the UCLA quarterback, and UCLA hasn't been good all year, throw for 293 yards against the Minnesota defense. So I do think it's a defense that is definitely solid. Miller Moss struggled for sure against Minnesota. They've been good at forcing turnovers the last 2 weeks. Miller Moss, 23-38, 200 yards against Minnesota. That was definitely not a best game. I don't even want to look at how Michigan's quarterback did, because they just flat out can't throw the football. Iowa, Cade McNamara, we know they don't really throw the football. 11-19 for 62 yards, but they rush the ball really well. So UNC in the season opener didn't throw the ball particularly well. So they're pretty good at slowing down the passing attack. And I want to come at you guys and say Maryland's going to need to run the ball against Minnesota. But that feels like a lie at this point. That's not how we're going to win games. And whenever we try and establish it, whenever we try and do good with it, it doesn't really work out. So I'm going to tell you right now, the key for us to win this game against Minnesota and the key for us to win for the rest of the year and what the game plan is going to be is throwing for a lot of yardage. That's how it's going to happen. And that's what it looks like in terms of the ratings in the Big Ten for Bill. First in the conference in passing yards and second in attempts, and he's doing a pretty good job in terms of completion percentage, even with all the attempts. He's in a good spot in terms of touchdowns as well, where he's tied for 6th in the conference in terms of touchdowns. So he's doing a lot of good things in the passing game, and that's going to be the key for us to win games. It's not the rushing, it's not the defense, it's the passing attack for the rest of the year. We're going to do a little fun last segment. I'm going to guess how many points each player on the Maryland basketball, the top guys, are going to average. I'm going to go through it quickly after this ad from PrizePicks. Hi there. Thanks for being a valued PrizePicks partner. As an experienced creator, we understand that you guys love PrizePicks. So you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one player gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive a $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead up to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Think Justin Jefferson will get more than 83.5 yards next week. Christian McCaffrey run more than 75.5. There's so many different things you guys can get on PrizePicks. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 line up. Let's go through some of the Maryland basketball players. I'm going to guess average. I'm going to go super quickly because we don't have too much time left in today's episode. But I'm going to do this. Basketball season's coming up. We're going to do something a little fun, a little rapid fire. I'm going to pull up the roster just so I get to everyone I want to get to. But we're going to quickly go through how many points I think everyone will average. And then you guys, make sure you guys tell me if you think you agree. I'm going to start with the first guy on the roster, Jacoby Gillespie. Junior transfer. I don't want to talk too much. You guys know who these guys are. To me, Gillespie gets like 13 points per game. I think that's a really good number for him. I think as our lead guard, I think he's going to be distributing a lot, but I think he can score the ball for sure. And I think that he's going to be one of our leaders offensively. I'm going to go 13 points for Jacoby Gillespie. Next name up is Rodney Rice, who I think can be really valuable off the bench. I think he's a guy that has starting potential, and he has a really high upside as a scorer. I'm going to go, since he's coming off the bench to start, probably he could be a really good player off the bench. I'm going to go 6 or 7 points a game. I think he gives us a real boost scoring off the bench. I'm going to skip down to Deshaun Harris-Smith. I think Deshaun, a lot of it is going to depend on how he's worked on that jump shot. If the jump shot's not there, he might average, even if he's starting, he might average 8 a game. If the jump shot's there, he could be a 10, 11, 12 type of guy. I'm going to go with 9. I'm going to go with 9. I do think he has the potential to average 9 a game. I think that's kind of where he's at in terms of himself. Let's talk about Selton Miguel. I think he's another guy that could be in for a lot of scoring. He looks like he's going to start this year, and he sounds like he's a really talented kid. I'm going to go with 13 for Selton Miguel. I think we're going to have a balanced scoring attack in our starting lineup. It's supposed to be Jacoby Gillespie, Selton, and Deshaun Harris-Smith, Julian Reese, Derek Queen. That could be 5 guys that all average above 10 points. And then Julian Reese is next on the list. Of course, he averaged, I think it was 12, 13 last year. I think this year it's probably around the same. I'm going to say 13 points a game. I think that when we look at it, I don't see a guy, but actually let me say Derek Queen's number first. I think Derek Queen probably gets around 17, 18 a game. I think he leads our team in scoring. I think he's our best player. But I think outside of Derek Queen, I see a really balanced lineup and 5 guys that can really go score. Or 4 guys. Deshaun Harris-Smith, we'll see how he's progressed. But I see 4 guys that can really have the opportunity to score. So I really do see them kind of balancing it out in terms of the scoring. I don't see 2 guys. Last year was Jameer Young would get average 22 points. It seemed like would average 20, and then Julian Reese would average 12, and then everyone else I felt was down. I see it being really balanced this year. In one game, Queen could go off, one game Reese could go off, one game Gillespie could go off. I love the team this year. I'm actually really excited for basketball season to start. I'll be interested to see what the rotation looks like, but I think we got a really talented bunch of guys, and I think we can score the ball and shoot the ball better than we have in a while. I think the Maryland Terrapins can, so I can't wait to see it. And I think we have a chance to have a really solid team this year. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball, so thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.